Woo! That sound is always something that gets me excited because it means we're back for another episode of The Nonprofits, the show where we discuss the news and the topics of the day from a skeptical humanist perspective. My name's Secular Rarity, and I am joined by an absolutely wonderful crew, mainly because there wasn't anybody else. They were all busy at this time of night. So with that being said, we're gonna just trudge right along and start off all the way on the far side from me with the wonderful Richard Gilliver. How are you, man?
I'm okay. I'm very excited to be working with you lot. BB, SR, myself, RG, and TEA. We're going to have a good show. I think today this is going to be a good one. We've got some fun articles to go through.
I absolutely agree. And up next is the wonderful cartoon that always keeps us smiling. Teo el Ateo, what's up, man?
Thank you, Secular. I'm so happy to be here. Only to remind everyone that the sexiest and coolest guys wear glasses. So sorry, Secular. Sorry.
That's fair. Starting off kind of hard there, Teo. All right. And up finally, the man who has been taking over the YouTubes by storm, Blatant Blatheist. What's up, man?
What's happening? Good to be back again. It's canon now. I am a regular. It's real, y'all. It's real.
That's right.
Yeah,
Etched in
witness, it's
stone
true.
like the 10 Commandments. That being
Those
said,
are real as well.
that's right, 100%. Yeah, one we have evidence for, one we don't. But this show is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And today, our topics are definitely going to be hitting on all of these things. We're going to start off with a Florida pastor and son who were arrested in a COVID scam. And then we've got too much Christ in our courts, Congress, and the classroom. Then we're going to ask, do we need a White History Month? I'm not thinking we do. And finally, we're going to talk about some striking findings from the Pew Research Center in 2022. And as is always the case here on the Nonprofits, the links to today's topics and the news that we discuss are in the description below. And remember, if you want to come to the show prepared, you can always check out the Nonprofits Facebook fan page every Friday night for a list of the articles ahead of time. And with these articles, you are definitely going to want to read through these because they have quite a lot in them. But to get us going, to start us all off, Blatant, what's going on in Florida? What's happening?
So, our first segment, we'll be looking into a headline from NBC News by Laura Strickler, Rich Shapiro, unfortunate last name, but we don't know him, and Stephanie Gosk. This was posted December 14th, 2022. And in this report, we see something very rare. A local Florida male making headlines. This almost never happens. But what makes it noteworthy is also seeing a pastor running a scam. It's like this is a fairy tale. Like these things don't happen in real life, right? So with that, Secular, what do you think about these very rare things?
Yeah. I was I reading through this, I just felt like it kept getting more and more wild. I think it was like 8.5 million or something they got for this, because they're inflating their employee numbers, they're inflating how much it actually costs to operate the church. Teo, is this something that you've seen before? Is this something that kind of is brand new for you? Like, how did you feel about this?
I would love to start being very sarcastic and say, oh, I'm so surprised, but no, I'm always talking about how pastor and priests are just legal thieves who take advantage of deceived or desperate people, and they find many ways to steal money from them. I don't know, maybe you have heard of guys such as a guy named Joel Osteen, who said that a lot of money had been stolen from him and it was found on a wall on his toilet, or some certain bishop Lamour Whitehead, who we were talking about him that he was robbed in here, but then we learned that he had been stolen money from one of the people. He said, I will help you buy your new house. And then he said, no, they were just donating money. And legally, yeah, that's a donation. So he stole the money legally, quotation mark. So yeah, guys, sorry, I see this over and over and over again. I have been talking a lot about this type of way of religion harming people and taking money from people who don't have enough money and giving it to rich assholes. And yeah, this is not surprising. As I mean, I guess I'm surprised that he was caught and that's it. But well, they were not very smart in the way how they tried to hide things. So there isn't much really to be surprised about this.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Richard, what were your thoughts on this? Was this
To be honest,
something
I'm
new,
surprised
or
that Teo thinks that this might be a regular thing for pastors, so that somehow they might be inherently dishonest. I don't know where he gets that idea from. The interesting thing about this for me is that they actually applied for a £6 million dollar, forgot which country I was in then, paycheck protection program to cover payroll, rent, and utilities, but they were awarded 8.4 million. So somebody along the line thought, well, they've applied, but we think they're actually worth a little bit more than that. They could do with a little bit extra to help them out. And help them out with what? Because they're not actually doing any of the things that they've applied for the money for. I think it's a little bit strange, that one. BB.
I think the most strange part of this is that like all of these crimes were identified in 2020, but the arrests were made recently. So what I find myself wondering is this because it's a Christian pastor in Florida? Like, you think that had anything to do with the delay? Because I seriously doubt that we could ever see a world where a Muslim imam would receive that same amount of restraint. But the other big thing that stood out for me is that not only did they try to commit tax fraud, but these guys are actually Canadian. So they also committed visa fraud. And all of this to buy a $3.5 million home next to Disney World, which that I understand. That I get, because, you know, like there's nothing I wouldn't do to say Goofy's my neighbor. So I let's give him a little bit of leeway here. You know what I mean? A little bit of understanding.
I have some things I can say, but we want to avoid any lawsuits or anything. But I'll say that one thing that, you know, really jumped out to me about this whole story is this kind of, you know, there are a lot of people out there that aren't really fans of social programs in the United States. And they don't like the idea of the government like giving money to various people in need, which is what these loans were supposed to be. They were supposed to be for businesses that were struggling so that they could help their employees get through a difficult time. It's weird to me that the people who don't really like these types of programs and talk about like the massive fraud and the scams that occur, it's weird that they don't mention like these instances. And I'm not sure if that's like a coincidence or something more underlying that. What do you think, Teo? Am I just totally off base here?
Yeah, and have you heard that these type of people and these type of pastors are the same against the government helping people and all of that? But when it's for them, oh no, it's totally okay because we totally need the government to help us help people. And then they have an empty building where they are supposedly paying hundreds of people with things. I just remember that reading the text that they use, it was just copied from other religious sites. And guys, did I read wrong, or they were caught because they were speeding? So they had run away, they had all the money, and they decided to speed, and that's the only reason why they got caught, because they were not found at the house where they were supposed to be working, quotation marks.
It's that jumps out to me about not being found at the house. I think it's the way it reads, the article anyway, suggests that not that I'm suggesting that they did this on purpose and it wasn't a complete mistake, this fraud they got done for, but when the federal agents came a knocking, they'd already scarpered and cleared the house out completely, and they were speeding down the highway with all the kind of the evidence, if you like, stuffed into suitcases. So I don't think there was any kind of accident about that whatsoever. It reads like a little bit of an action film, other than the action part is that
it said, if I remember,
who've defrauded everybody.
If I remember correctly, it said that they were when they were pulled over for speeding, they were found with a large bag of shredded documents, which I feel like it's one of those things that if you ever are like found with, and police officers are like looking at you, it's like that always makes it look bad. That just makes it look bad. So obviously we're still waiting on this. This is just about their arrest, so we don't know what the ultimate outcome is. But yeah, again, I don't know how you get away looking too great with all of that. Anything else that stood out for you, Blatant? Anything about this that you just felt like this was strange or indicative of something else?
Yeah, the only thing that jumps out is just that it's Florida. Like that really caught me off guard because Florida is the place where they're now going to be doing a heartbeat bill. So no more abortions. They're going to be doing a constitutional carry bill. So everybody gets a gun. So I'm just shocked that we're going to have so many Florida men in headlines. It's unprecedented. It's just wow. Who's ever heard of a Florida man?
Oh yeah,
Right?
man. Just look for your birthday.
Is that like Piltdown Man? Is it some kind of ancient ancestor? They'll look back on in years to come. Here is an example of our ancient past Florida man. Notice how he has a gun to compensate for his tiny little penis.
Like December 14th, somebody's going to be looking up their birthday and like December 14th, 2022, Florida man. Pastor?
I guess I can say these are not the smartest criminals ever, and I don't want to teach people how to commit crimes. But come on, guys, really? Speeding? I mean, you have all the evidence with you and you decide to speed in your own car? There is something called fire. I don't know. Yeah, guys, I'm telling them to burn their car. Obviously. I mean, of course.
Yeah. Richard, any other thoughts before we let Blatant wrap us up?
You know what? I love this story. I think one thing that did interest me about this is that I was recently talking to a Muslim apologist who was talking about how many people convert to Islam in prison. And this story got me thinking, and I know these guys haven't been sent to prison yet, so I don't want to kind of speculate that they're going to prison. But I think if they preach people and if they convert people, there will no doubt be apologists on the other end of it saying, good people, these people have been converted in prison, found the good of faith and the good of Christianity in prison. And one thing that struck me about this and this thing in general is that nobody ever mentions that the people who were in prison and who converted them to that religion are people of religion who've been bad and sent to religion for committing crimes. And nobody ever says that when these apologists are saying, we converted in prison, people have been converted in prison. It shows what the good people are. It shows that people can change their lives around. Nobody ever mentions the other side of the argument. And that kind of piqued my interest a little bit here in this story. But I think that one's for another day.
It's an interesting one, but are jails different over there? Because in here, at least, people usually convert in prison because there are priests who go regularly over there to get new people. And usually those people, quotation mark, convert because if they say that they became Christians, they get their sentence reduced. So that's how awfully it works.
That's definitely. See, that's not usually the case over here in here when people have converted. It tends to be that they've met somebody off faith who has been sent to prison. So it's that. I think that might be an interesting future story. Let's save that one for another day.
Yeah, for sure. Blatant, any other thoughts on this and kind of the whole shebang, as it were?
Just the way that they travel with the evidence remind me of someone who used to be really powerful. Not gonna say who. Not gonna say who. He has very big hands. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. Well, I think that is a great way for us to move on and Before we get to the next segment, we actually need to give a very fond and hearty thank you to all the veteran and new viewers out there, because y'all got us over 11,000 subscribers, and that is freaking awesome. So thank you so much. And if you're watching us now and you haven't subscribed yet, just do it. I mean, at this point, it's kind of ridiculous. I don't know what you're waiting for. It hurts. Like it. I'm sorry. Anyway, once you've subscribed, make sure to like the video and ring that bell so that you always know when we have new episodes of the Nonprofits. But by the way, there's also cool stuff going on the channel every other day of the week, other than Sundays at 3 p.m. Central. But, hang out anytime. By the way, after that, we've made it easy for you. Go ahead and share the link to our channel with your friends, your family members. Maybe make some new friends or family members. I don't know what you do in your spare time when you're not watching our show. But just find some people and just send them the link, because, that's a good way to actually start meeting new people. And one reason that's super important is because not only does that mean you have a bigger community to hang out with, but it can really, really help us out with those fundraisers, which just means we get to do more cool stuff like this. So with that being said, did you know that the Atheist Community of Austin has another YouTube channel? Well, you absolutely should know, because we talk about it. And if you're not paying attention, then I'm a little disappointed. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. But go check out the Atheist Experience Network, a channel where you can find all the ACA shows in podcast form. Subscribe at tiny.cc/AEN podcasts to listen to the episodes of the Nonprofits, the Atheist Experience, Secular Sexuality, Truth Wanted, and all of the fantastic ACA shows. Don't miss a single episode. Go subscribe right now. Well, with that, Richard, I think you're gonna give us a little lesson on religion in courts and Congress. What's going on here?
Yeah, this is an article that comes from Brown Political Review, and it was published on December 13th, 2022 by Sophie Forstner. I can't speak. I cannot speak. This article is about the representation in the Supreme Court, with numerous 6-3 decisions in which a conservative majority consistently contradicts precedents. That alliteration just isn't working for me today. This is interesting, given that the representation is 6 Christians. Sounds a little bit suspicious, right? I think we should dive into this a little bit further. I'm going to hand this on over to BB.
So this is depressing. This whole subject matter to me is just depressing. Like, I remember growing up as a kid in school, all bright-eyed and indoctrinated. Like, I was led to believe that the government functioned just as it was advertised to me. Everybody's vote counts. Representatives actually represent the interests of their constituents. Woo! And I believe the separation of church and state was the cornerstone of our government, because that's what I was taught in school. Fast forward to today, and we watch I'm not going to say rogue, but we're just going to say a very conservative Supreme Court rule in the favor of someone entrusted with people's children, choosing to indoctrinate those children with his religious practices. The Supreme Court is on his side. And then they completely set aside a 50-year legal precedent and decide to allow federal funds to go to an exclusively religious institution. Their reasoning for this is because funds have been going to private schools, just because of the way Maine's laws are set up. It's just depressing. Teo, cheer me up.
Yeah, no, you want me to cheer you up, dude? We have been. I want you to start by saying that this program, the nonprofits, became very prophetic with this case, because I remember, you remember I had an hiatus when I was not here, but kind of a year ago or 7-8 months ago, we were talking about Kennedy versus the school district, and we were talking about how awful it would be if he actually won the case. And a couple of weeks later, we were talking about how he actually won the case and how depressing it was. And it's awful. We talked about how he was trying to indoctrinate children, how he would pray in whole stadiums. Then you read this article, please everybody check it in the description, and you go and see how in court they said, no, he would never do this publicly. It was a private thing. And we were talking about how he was doing it publicly, and that's the only reason why he got fired, because he was going against the First Amendment, I think is the one that stops you from indoctrinating people publicly when they don't go there on their own. Back me up, guys. It's your loss. You should know.
It is the First Amendment, but it's the
It is?
Establishment Clause. Yeah, the government's not allowed to establish religion. Yeah.
Cool. So we were talking about that, and when we were talking about that, we talk about how certain ex-president who praised Hitler put in court specific people who were extremely religious and who were going to allow this. And yeah, later we had the case of abortion becoming illegal, all related to the same thing, and it's awful and disgusting. Blatant, I cannot cheer you up because this depressed me a lot. It's awful. Richard, do you have something to cheer us up?
I don't know if I have anything to cheer you up on this. One thing that struck out to me on this is, the Supreme Court is made up of 5 Catholics, 3 Jews, and 1, is it Episcopal, intends Episcopal services, but it was brought up Catholic. So I was trying to do a bit of research on what he actually is, but the Catholics were kind of saying, once you're a Catholic, you're always a Catholic, and claiming him for themselves. So I think the general consensus is there's 6 Catholics and 3 Jews. But I was slightly confused by this, because the article said that the Christian majority on the highest court in the nation is attempting to hold on to their power and turn the public tide back in favor of religion. But yet the same article clearly stated that one of the voices of dissent was one of those Catholics. So I did get the slight impression that the article itself may have a little bit of bias in. But nevertheless, the overarching idea is blatantly obvious. And it does seem to be that the kind of Christian majority is wanting to kind of push an agenda and push their religious views into this surreptitiously. SR.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of that. So I've been following these cases for a little while, not only because, like Teo had mentioned, we have talked about this stuff before on the nonprofit. So definitely, if you missed those talks, go back and check them out because they were really cool. But one reason that I was really excited when this was one of the articles that we had prepared for this show was because, as is often the case whenever the Supreme Court puts out rulings, one of them grabs a lot of the attention and the other ones don't get talked about as much, even if they are incredibly, incredibly important. And so I'm glad that we are highlighting these, because both of these cases, I think, are really good pieces of data for us to use in showing the overall continuing trend. And there's a quote from Alito, I believe, where he specifically is discussing about the Lemon test, which is a test that Blatant was referring to earlier about the 50-year precedent of how our courts kind of decided whether or not this particular law was infringing on the right for individuals to practice their religion, right? Because that's one of the things about separation of church and state. It is important that the state not impede others from doing their religious practices, as long as they're doing it for themselves, with themselves, and the groups of individuals that choose that willingly, and they're not imposing that on others. But that's the part, that last little bit there is the really, really key freaking part. And especially in the Kennedy case, especially in that case of the coach praying on the field, that is absolutely an imposition. And the quote from Alito that I think is really, really telling is where he says, this court long ago abandoned Lemon and its endorsement test offshoot. And this was because he called this test, ambitious and abstract and ahistorical. despite the literal 50 years worth of legal precedent. 50 years worth of some of supposedly the most educated and just best legal minds we could have thinking and talking about this. And for some reason, Alito thinks that that's ahistorical. So I maybe I just don't understand the definition of that word. Blatant, can you help me out a little?
I wish I could help, because I mean, we're looking at the exact same thing when it comes to abortion. That was a 50-year precedent, and I won't stop, God. Anyway, so sorry. Welcome my neighbors to the show as well. So yeah, I have nothing more to even say on this, because it's just a sad reality that we live in, because we're pretty much living with a one-party government right now.
Yeah.
When there's money in our politics, then the shared interests of both parties pretty much overrules any common sense at that point. So yeah, that's all I've really got on it. Anybody else have any thoughts on this segment?
Yeah, Teo,
Well,
any other thoughts?
I like that Blatant said that there is only one party. I always talk about how it's hilarious to see in the USA people accusing one side to be leftist and stuff like that, because guys, this is Latam. In here we do have communists and left sides and all the spectrum of politics. Over there you have the right wing and the extreme right wing, and that's it. That's all you have over there, guys. And you can see that it's terrible, but we can see in these cases that Christianity is taking over. The USA is slowly turning into, and not as slowly, I have to say, turning into a theocracy, and people want to indoctrinate your nation in such a huge way, in such a degree, that they are putting specific people in charge of creating laws, destroying them. Now you have these laws where teachers cannot even teach about their history of their own country, because they want ignorant people who are easy to control and who want to take orders. 1984 is calling you guys. And it's creepy, it's scary, and I'm afraid. I'm really afraid of what is going on over there, guys.
Yeah, I think I want to echo Teo a little bit there, because I've noticed that as well. It certainly from the outside, it very much appears that kind of America secular. It doesn't seem to be that way at the moment. If we have a look, all these as BB said, all these precedents that we've had that have been overturned, and they've been overturned in the wrong way. This is not how it's supposed to work. You know, you're supposed to kind of have archaic laws and overturn those and progress and move forward. And the US from the outside just seems to be doing the opposite. You know, it was bad enough in the kind of when I first joined the non-profits, and we had a little the kind of religious kind of idiots are trying to get creationism taught in schools, ha ha ha. But no, it's gone beyond that, and it's like it's getting serious, and people's rights and people's lives are being put at risk, and rights are being overturned just because of it seemingly of people's kind of religious affiliation. And it's okay. Well, because if it doesn't work, we'll just go to the Supreme Court, because they'll back us up. Because every single one of them's religious. Every single one of them's kind of. I mean, you've got, as I said earlier, you've got kind of 6 Christians and 3 Jews on there. There's no Islamic representation. There's no Hindu representation. There's no Buddhist, Taoist, Sikh. And any number of secular representation. It's very, very kind of. It's like a little tight knit club, and they seem to be really, really getting in the way at the moment, and it is really scary looking in from the outside. SR.
Yeah, I can definitely echo all of that. And one of the things specifically, because the case regarding the schools in Maine is a little bit more complicated and a bit more nuanced. It has to do with the difficulty getting to some portions of that state, and the fact that public schools in that area are, it's not really possible because of the small amount of children, and so they have to have a private school set up. But there were secular schools that were getting money and religious schools weren't. So it is a little bit more nuanced, but at the end of the day, it's very obvious that the court is purposefully siding with this Christian nationalist agenda. It's very obvious that they are purposefully taking these types of cases. And one major thing that I want to highlight about the Kennedy case, because I think it is deeply, deeply important, whether you are religious or not, whether you're whatever side of the spectrum you are politically speaking, we should all care that the people who enforce our laws are actually, following the law themselves and actually, being honest and representing the facts correctly. And that did not happen in this case with Kennedy. And one of the justices, Sotomayor, in her dissent, points this out very clearly and says that this court misrepresented the facts on the ground. And they did, meaning 6 of our justices currently sitting on the Supreme Court purposefully lied and misconstrued what was happening in an effort to pass a ruling that they agreed with. That's what happened. Whether that ruling is in your favor or not, you should be upset with that, because that is not how our Supreme Court is supposed to work. And people will look back on this case for 50, 100, 150 years. And my hope on a personal level is that when we do that reflection 100 years from now, that reflection is of legal scholars saying things like, that was a time that stuff could have gotten really bad, but thank goodness we corrected it. Thank goodness we pulled back from that scary, scary time. Because again, right now we're living in a time where 6 of our justices on the Supreme Court, who sit there for life, they misrepresented facts of a case so that they could rule in their favor. So that definitely is not a good thing, and not something I think we should be quiet about. So that being said, Teo, what else do you got?
Well, what you said is going to be encapsulated on some final words from the article that I want to quote, when they say, the Christian majority on the highest court in the nation is attempting to hold onto their power and turn the public tide back in favor of religion. They are using schools and young students as the battleground for this fight. And yeah, guys, that is scary as hell, for me at least. And you can see indoctrination at schools and right there, and it's creepy and it's extremely sad.
Yeah, definitely agree. And again, it's, I've said this before on some topics that I think are pretty important, and separation of church and state is definitely one of those that we care about and we want to make sure is enforced. Again, like I said earlier, this isn't something that's just for the non-religious. This is why I'm such a huge fan of FFRF. They're a wonderful, wonderful organization, and I love that they are always on the front lines, just out there, making sure that these types of cases are getting their due in the public discourse, and that we're not, just kind of pushing these under the rug. Again, even like with the main one, I get it. It's complicated. It's nuanced. The only reason that I have the level of understanding that I have is because there's this one podcast that I listen to that, they just deep dive into all these types of Supreme Court cases. But this stuff is important. It matters, and it's worth all of us being, good members of our country and taking part in our government. So definitely this is something that I know we're not going to shut up about. Well, I'm not going to shut up about. I don't know about y'all, but I'm definitely going to keep mentioning these types of things because, like I said, I think when you plot them all out on a board and a timeline, and a pattern starts to emerge, and one that I am definitely not a fan of. So hopefully hopefully the next time we're talking about this type of thing, we can all be a little bit happier and we're all saying something like, what a great decision or whatever. But I don't know. You guys ruined. All right, and we are back. And just a reminder for all of you wonderful folks out there, if you can arrange to be in the Austin area on the last week of every month, why not come join us in the studio audience at the ACA Free Thought Library for live broadcasts of secular sexuality, Truth Wanted, Talk Heathen, and the Atheist Experience. That's right, folks. You can hang out in the Free Thought Library in the live studio audience. Doors open at 6 p.m. on Thursday and Friday and noon on Sunday. And parking is where you can find a legal spot after the lot is full. So if you get there early, you get a little bit better of a space. And if you can't make it there this month, that's okay. We understand you've got a busy life. We will continue to broadcast live from the library the last week of every single month. So just make sure you keep watching this show and go check out the website at atheist-community.org for the news and information as we expand our in-studio offerings in the near future. So definitely, I know that is something that is super, super cool. I've had a lot of close friends already get down there, and I'm hoping to get down there soon myself. So yeah, if you got the time, just put it on the calendar and get out there. I hear they treat you very well. Very nice food. Lots of fun stuff. Anyway, before we just go completely off the rails and I start thinking about pizza, Teo, there was some story. Somebody was questioning something. I don't remember what it was. What's going on?
Yeah, well, we were just talking about education, and this, strangely, is related to education. We were just talking about how people refuse to teach specific things and all of that, and this interesting jewel comes from social networks, because a certain guy, he's kind of an authority, and he's, let me read, a school board president. His name is April Walters, and he has written, "Oh, I forgot when is White History Month." For those of you, those few people who are living under a rock and don't get the reference or why the post, why this is so terrible, this is a direct attack against Black History Month, a small time when the USA should be remembering the horrors that Black people had to go through for just having a specific skin tone. And you know what? The most insulting part of this is that when this guy, Mr. April Walters, was confronted about his racism and ignorance, this school board president said that there was nothing racist about this. Guys, this kind of makes me angry, and I just wish if I only had a person, from this specific ethnic group that has always been attacked due to their skin color. But, well, anyways, unrelated to this very specific wish of mine, dear Blatant Atheist, what is your opinion about this, behavior of this authority?
April, fuck right off. Just want to start off with that. So this one really pissed me off. Like, it really, really pissed me off because it hit really close to home and it kind of triggered me. So for those that don't see this statement as racist, let me break it down for you. When's White History Month? It's one of the oldest and most common dog whistles in existence. It's the all lives matter response to Black Lives Matter. Like, if I say my house is on fire, please help me, and your response is, hey, all houses matter, you're not the good guy here, man. You're not the good guy. April, you're not the good guy here. So it's sort of the same with Black History Month. It had to be established because Black history was being buried. Even after it was established as a Black History Month, even after we got that, it pretty much consisted of Martin had a dream and Black people were slaves that one time, y'all. Like that, that was Black History Month for decades. And as a Black man, I'm still catching up on the history of my own people that I never got to learn because CRT is apparently a thing. I still call it American history, but sure. So, I didn't know what Black Wall Street was until I was in my late 20s. I learned that from YouTube, not from a teacher. Yeah. But yeah, that's where I'm at with it. Just triggered and pissed off.
Yeah, I think that's completely understandable, because this is Walters is using the same old tactic we've seen time and time again, where people are like, "I'm just asking questions," and it's like, we here are a skeptical community. We like questions, but questions in good faith, right? Questions where people are genuinely trying to get to an answer that they don't know, right? Tweeting out to the masses, when is White History Month, and not saying anything else, that is not a genuine attempt to try to understand that. Because literally, you could have just gone to Google before you typed it into a Twitter message, right? Like you could have just typed that question into, I don't know if Ask Jeeves is still around, but you could have asked Jeeves. Like, I mean, if somebody is genuinely uneducated on something and they say, look, this is something I don't know, and I know this might be a sensitive issue or a hot button topic, but I just don't know, that's okay. That's not a problem. But the individuals who are using that as a cover to just spread bigotry and hatred, it is absolutely abhorrent, in my opinion. And it is so frustrating because it makes all of this worse. It makes all of this worse because now what we get is she puts out the tweet and then somebody responds and says that's a problem, and then she yells about freedom of speech, and then you're a bigot, and then you're a bad, and then it's just more and more hatred and crap back and forth, when in reality we should be able to have conversations, and we should be able to say things like, hey guys, do we think we teach enough white history in the US schools? Yeah, probably. It's like basically the whole curriculum. Oh, okay, cool. So we can just move on from that topic, right? We're done with it. Like it's over. We're finished. We can just go on. Anyway, Richard, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm with BB here all the way, and I think coming from Britain, which has a completely different kind of education system, which is still shit, by the way, but it is completely different, and I think we don't learn about, or we do learn about, but we certainly don't learn about in any detail in our kind of role in slavery and all, in Black history in this country, and we kind of have the arbitrary, this is what slavery is, for whatever, for a couple of months in school, or we did when I was at school anyway. And I think education, and as I may have mentioned once or twice on this show, is quite an important thing. We do need education, but we need the right kind of education as well. It's okay. You can have education and teach people it's okay to be completely racist. Just simply having education is not enough. It's having the right kind of education, having to know where the boundaries are, knowing what you need to teach, and what, history is very, very important. And everyone from every political spectrum will acknowledge that history is important, so we don't make the same mistakes that we've already made. The problem is that some people don't see those things as mistakes, some things in history as mistakes. And, that's what we need. And that's why Black History Month is so, so important, is getting that fucking message across that, this was a huge mistake. Let's learn about this. We need to get this forward. We need to push this to the forefront. And tweets like this one, I'm not sure if it was a tweet, but whatever method of social media she put it out on, it's just ridiculous. It's just showing you blatant ignorance of the entire subject, and to, as Secular said, to then go on and start crying, "Oh, woe is me! My First Amendment rights have been impeached." I don't know. It's beyond crazy to me. It really is that we live in a world where this kind of thing happens. Teo.
Yeah, I think that we all agree with Blatant on how triggering this is and how upset we are about this. And it's I mean, guys, there is only one phrase. Those who don't remember their history are doomed to repeat it. And people are against teaching people or teaching students about their own history. It's awesome that I'm very sad that me, as a non-United Statian, I know more about the United States than children studying at schools right now. Uh, if if somebody who doesn't know about their own history is watching this, go on the internet, go to Wikipedia, write slavery. I'm going to mention just 3 numbers and that's it, because somebody told me that I cannot read the whole Wikipedia article, so I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it, guys. But let's start with 1508. Over 500 years ago, slavery started when people was taken from Africa to Puerto Rico, and they were being sold in here. In the 18th century, England passed Spain and Portugal to become the world's leading traders of enslaved people. Awful. And where were they bringing those people? Obviously to the USA. And in 1703, over 40% of New York households had enslaved people. Can you imagine that? Last number, last year, 1720, 65% of South Carolina's population was enslaved. And this is what people are forgetting, that these people were enslaved, they were mistreated, they were treated as infrahuman. If I have time, I will talk about what happened after slavery ended, which is not a happy end. And yeah, this is what these type of people like. So it was a she, April. Oh yeah, like the Ninja Turtles, April, whatever. She's trying to erase this part of history. It's almost as awful as those guys who say, no, it wasn't slavery. They were workers who would have fun at their rice and cotton fields. And that is disgusting. And I think I totally understand why Blatant feels so awful about this. And brother, I'm with you in your pain. This is awful, shitty, disgusting, terrible, one of the worst things ever. But I'm sure you can explain it better than me, BB.
I don't know if better would be the word, because y'all pretty much hit it on the head, man. And then her response is what really sent me over. It sent me completely over because, of course, she uses those right-wing buzzwords, freedom of speech, always in all caps. For whatever reason, it has to be in all caps. And then she goes on to say, not only when it suits people or political agenda. She obviously went to the Fox News School of Propaganda. She learned very well. And then just to wrap a neat little bow around this box of stupid, she says every race should have a time for their heritage to be taught and celebrated. Yes, that includes white history, black history, native history, and Hispanic history. This is why I always say a quick Google could be the end of racism. A little bit of common sense, just a quick Google. Here's what I Googled. National Native American Heritage Month, November. National Hispanic Heritage Month is celebrated from September 15th through October 15th. We know Black History Month got the shortest month of the year, but we're not even going to get into that. So, but the reason that natives, Hispanics, and Black people had to have their own designated months is because every day, week, month, every second in America is white history in America. Like saying that asking when is White History Month is like asking when is Moon Awareness Day. Like we know the moon is there. We don't need to have an awareness day for the moon. It's there. We all see it. We all know about the moon. Like it. I'm glad I was able to get that out without cursing.
Yeah,
shit. When we're supposed to curse.
Richard, any other thoughts?
I just want to talk about the article, not the contents of the article, but the article itself a minute, because something stood out to me in the article, and that's it was really badly written, and it was really kind of vague. A lot of the stuff was kind of left stuff open to interpretation. There was a guy called Tyree Harris who was the guy who raised the complaint, and she went on a tirade about is whether it was questionable or not, whether it was she claimed it was disruptive. It made the claim because it was vying for a seat on the school board, and there was no information about that. It was just kind of thrown out there, and I don't know whether that was on purpose or whether it was just lazy reporting, but it really did leave, I was left with lots of questions that I wanted answered in this particular case, which I didn't get. I wanted to know, why was he being disruptive? What was the background to this? Because that could have informed us more on and any kind of mitigating circumstances, if you like. If mitigating circumstances are possible for a complete knucklehead putting out this kind of stuff, but we weren't even given that chance because the article was very vague, and that's kind of, I don't like that kind of thing. That kind of gets me wound up a little bit when I see lazy reporting like that. I want to know information. I want to get the background stuff, and there was no doubt that she's a complete fucking moron in my opinion. But let's have the details of why. Let's get a little bit more behind it and a bit more nuance in it, rather than she put out some message on social media and went on a bit of a rant and then started crying when things didn't go her way. I want the meat and potatoes of it. So
Yeah, I totally understand that, and you're in luck because our final topic is just detail heavy, man. I know you're excited for that one, but yeah, I think just real quick, like this is one of those moments again where I kind of go back and forth. Do I want people with these types of views to be super vocal about it? Because it concerns me if they're not and they're still on the school boards, right? Obviously it concerns me if they are super vocal and they're on the school boards, but I feel like in that scenario, at least we know, and I don't know. I don't know sometimes, but I think this was a good choice by Tyree Harris. Honestly, I was just happy that he did go through the effort to make this known and to to get this in front of the rest of the board and get it out there to the public. And I hope that any other instances like this, we should try to get rid of this as much as possible. I don't think bigotry has a place in our schools. I don't think it has a place in our courts, our government, just anywhere. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's a bold stance, you guys, but anyway, Teo, any other thoughts on this before we go on to our next topic?
Yeah, I hope nobody wants a school board president with that type of opinion. And I may be the opposite of Richard. I was like, Richard, what else do you expect from a Facebook post? And I really didn't like the last article. But before going there, people from the USA, did you know that after slaves were freed, if you had dark skin, you could go to jail just for marrying a white person, just for trying to vote, or just for trying to use the same toilet that a white person? Did you know that? If you didn't, maybe you should go and check your history. And I want one name for everybody to remember. Ruby Bridges, a tender 6-year-old who in November of 1960 started going to school. She was the first African-American student to go into elementary school. She was hated because of that. Huge amounts of white people were there shouting at this little girl, trying to stop her from studying. And apparently that is the type of word that April, the school president board, wants when it's trying to say, oh yeah, why is it important to remember those things? Because if you forget your history, you are doomed to repeat it. And apparently, for what we have seen previously, some religious people want people to forget that, oh yeah, women have rights. Oh yeah, you shouldn't try to indoctrinate people. Oh yeah, bad things happen to people with dark skin. So let's not forget people. Let's never forget, please. Remember your history. Check your history. Use internet. If you are not taught at school, check it on your own. You have Wikipedia, etc.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that poor girl is not even 70 years old now. Yeah. So she still remembers when there were hundreds of white people shouting at her to stop her from going to school. That creeps me out.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that is a great sentiment to wrap that up on. And again, just one of those things that I feel very confident that this wonderful channel will continue to highlight whenever there's crap like that that's coming out. So, with that being said, folks, we've got something special here on the channel, and it's right below. You can see it just below our beautiful faces. You can become a member of this channel for as little as 99 cents a month. That's right, not even a full dollar a month. Just click the join button below the video, and this will give you access to super special chat emojis. And I have been told, I don't know how true it is, we're skeptical, but I've been told if we get more members, we get more emojis. So if you want to see even cooler emojis out there and more and lots, become a member, because then you can spam them in the chat. Sorry, mods. Also, we have a brand new store. Visit tiny.cc/merchaca, and you can get all your favorite items like t-shirts, hoodies, and coffee mugs. And you can check out the new items like beanies, phone cases, and tote bags. And all ACA shows feature a special limited edition item every single month. So make sure to go check out our store for NP merch and the merch from all the other shows. And we're always taking suggestions for new cool items. So if you have an idea, why not go grab one of those items that are up there and then send us an email and tell us about some other things you'd like. But we're gonna wrap up this show actually with kind of a wrap up from 2020. We're going to take a look at a bunch of different findings that the Pew Research Center has done over the year. So the first one that I want to talk about, I thought was really interesting. And just a reminder to all of our wonderful viewers and listeners, you can find all of these articles in the description. So definitely go check that out. Go check out the fan Facebook page because you are going to want to read through a lot of these studies. They are super, super cool, in my opinion. So one of them is about the disparity between journalists and the average person reading the news in terms of how much coverage they should give to each side. A lot of people have probably heard of this like both sidism, which is like, hey, if we give 10 minutes to this side, we got to give 10 minutes to that side. Apparently, when it comes to just the average US adult, 76% said, yeah, heck yeah, we should always give equal coverage. What was really interesting was that only 44% of journalists actually said that we should give equal coverage. And I one of the reasons that this one jumped out at me was I think that's kind of telling. I think that's really, really fascinating that the individuals that are really on the ground level getting to go through these processes of finding this information and putting this information out there and the effects of it being out there, their views seem to be markedly different than the average person. And I would be willing to make a little wager, I guess, and say that it probably has to do with some of their expertise in seeing how some of that both sidism stuff has turned out. But we're just gonna kind of highlight a couple of other ones that jumped out to us. I think Blatant, you had a couple of ones that were really interesting to you. What did you find?
Yeah, the first one I found that I thought like really jumped out at me is that views of reparations for slavery vary widely by race and ethnicity. The separation seems to be more apparent between Black and white Americans, and I, for one, am shocked. So it's about 30% of Americans are white Americans that feel the descendants of enslaved Black Americans should receive some form of reparations, while 68% disagree. And that boils down to 77% of Black Americans being in favor of reparations and 18% of white Americans being for. Now, this may come as a surprise to some, but I'm actually against monetary reparations, full stop. Like, several reasons. The biggest reason being that I don't trust the government, the United States government, to carry this out properly. I feel like monetary compensation would come with a lot of means testing, like proving you're actually a descendant of enslaved Black Americans. The problem with that is the same reason we have Black History Month. Our histories were mostly erased. So most Black people that, well, I guess most Black people in general, but pretty much everybody I know especially, we don't know any lineage past our grandparents or at best great grandparents. So yeah, that one really jumped out at me, and I hope my descent from that took somebody by surprise.
Richard, was there a study out there that jumped out to you?
Oh, there were a couple, and I I enjoyed reading through these. The first one that popped out to me was that Christians could make up a minority of Americans by 2070, and I think for me, the first thing we've got to remember with this is that these are models based on hypothetical scenarios, but the trend seems to be pointing to a decrease in American Christians. And this caught my attention because we covered a similar story on the old British episode of the non-profits that we did whenever we did that in the distant past, where we stated that self-identifying Christians were declining in England and Wales. And I think I should repeat the same warning as I did on that show. And I don't think this can ever be underemphasized, overemphasized, underemphasized. You know what I mean? I told you I couldn't speak tonight. We should not let such projections make us complacent. Lack of religion does not automatically mean an increase in skepticism and critical thinking. And this, rather than looking at declining religious numbers in isolation, is what we should be aiming for if we want to live in a fairer, safer world. And that was the one that stood out for me.
Yeah, definitely. Teo, what
Yeah,
jumped out for
this
you?
one this one also got my attention, but I kind of saw, or I thought about the other way around. Like, people actually realize that this is happening, and they are starting to fight back, and they are trying to revert this, and they are taking history away. They are forcing indoctrination into schools. Didn't we just read about that? Certain things, certain article that said that they were fighting a war using schools as battlefields and children as, I don't know, part of the battlefield. So yeah, people may stop believing in certain things, but we do have a very strong political. This is in the USA, so you have it over there. A very strong political group of Christians who are really doing their best to stop this from happening, which is scary, and I'm sure we will see a lot of, how to call it, a kind of holy war going over there. And I always say, whenever I'm here, I say that I'm scared about the USA because I see it turning into a theocracy. And that is freaking creepy, guys. So that was one of them. The other one is 11. Because, sorry, I got all of them, but I will talk just... you didn't do all of them? No? Only me? Okay, it's okay. It's okay. I will talk about a couple of them. 11 said, a recent surge in U.S. drug overdose deaths has hit Black men the hardest. And I read this and I thought, after being discriminated, denied basic rights, treated like second-class citizen by the media, by neo-Nazi groups, I wonder why could this be happening to this specific group of people? I don't know. SR, what do you think?
Yeah. That was definitely one that really was upsetting, I think. And I think one reason it was upsetting is because it feels like that particular problem in the United States, the opioid crisis, has really stopped being talked about. I'm not saying causation here. I'm mentioning that there seems to be a correlation at the time that the number one group of individuals that is starting to be affected by this, being black men, we see less coverage of it. So again, not saying that's causation. I'm just pointing out something that kind of jumped out to me. Another one of these studies that jumped out to me, and again, folks, we're just barely scratching the surface on all of these because there's so much information. So please make sure to go check out this article and the other ones from the episode. But apparently, over the years 2020, 2021, and 2022, the amount of individuals, adults in the US who are getting news from TikTok is actually growing. This is I would not have put money on that 3 years ago. But that's where we are. With that being said, it's still above like 53% for Twitter and like above 44% for Facebook. So, they're still getting a lot of the news from other social media platforms. But TikTok has been the one that has really bucked that trend and has continued to grow. I would probably argue that's not the best thing in the world. I'm a big fan of like reputable news sources with like reliable information and stuff. And TikTok just doesn't always feel like that to me, but whatever. Richard, was there any other one of these articles that jumped out at you?
There was, but just before I talk about that, I love the idea that TikTok gives news to people. I've not even seen news. The closest thing I've seen to news on TikTok is the predictions given by the fake time traveler. So does it even give news? I don't know. Maybe I'm not using it properly. I don't know. But anyway, the second article that stood out for me was that most Americans who have experienced extreme weather in the last year see climate change as a factor. Now, I am old. I'm going to go into a bit of a monologue here. I apologize. I'm really old. Some people might say I'm older than the very fabric of space and time itself. At least if that goes back to the 1970s. But when I was a little boy, frolicking in the snow, we had 4 seasons every year. We had rain, nice summers, picturesque autumnal episodes, and spring with flowers popping up and little lambs hopping happily about the fields. Anyway, as we reached the early 90s, we were aware that there was a hole in the ozone layer. We were aware of climate change, and we had the odd extreme weather event, but by and large, we still had 4 seasons. By the early 2000s, the seasons were becoming erratic. We had increasingly hot summer days where men who were about 20 years older than me were telling us, if this is global warming, lad, we could do with more of it. And people arguing about whether climate change was natural or influenced by humans, we were becoming acutely aware that there was a change in the air. But it still seemed rather distant. Now the world is fucked. Extreme weather events are normal. We, in Britain at least, have no seasons to speak of. We just have far too hot sunshine, far too cold freezers, torrential floods, and wild wind. There is an undercurrent of something seasonal about it, but it's a shadow. It's a remnant of what it once was. And one thing that this research doesn't mention, which I was a bit annoyed about, was the age of the people that were asked. Younger people have not seen climate change. They have, however, grown up with extreme weather events. Older people have seen the change taking place. We can see the connection between the change in climate change and extreme weather. There's also something else missing here that I've already mentioned. The old argument about whether climate change is man-made or natural. And honestly, I'm kind of glad, because that argument's now largely irrelevant. The climate is fucked. And this research demonstrates that most people are at least marginally aware of this, and how it happened is now, I think, a little bit irrelevant. What is important is how we react to it. So I know that was a little bit of a monologue and a little bit of a rant. Teo.
Well, when I read the same thing about climate change, my first reaction was, no way, Sherlock. So that's it. I mean, yeah, we've been warned about that for such a long time. Did you see that we have a TikTok down here? Go visit it, guys. It's going to be awesome. I have to admit, I couldn't last 3 minutes on TikTok, but you still can see me there because I have recorded some things there. So it's kind of weird. I mean, I entered there, I saw people dancing. why are people going to say are going to take their news from there? That's so weird. BB, take it away from me, please.
It's just like I had so much more to say, but all I keep picturing is just TikToks giving news. Like I can't get it out of my head now. More Americans have been like what like oh god, oh that just ruined me. All right, so I had another
bring you
thing
good
that
news.
I
We
wanted to
bring you
talk
good news.
about, but I'm gonna go ahead and put that on the back burner just to like further get into my stance on reparations, because my name is Blatant Blatheist. I represent Black atheists, and I do not want the comments to be like, I know he didn't. So, so the reason that I'm against monetary compensation for reparations is because what I pretty much laid out. It's not going to be carried out with any good faith whatsoever. But I don't know if people remember a disheveled elderly man that looked like a scientist from a disaster movie warning us about impending doom named Bernie Sanders, but he ran for president twice. He was perfection. And his, like, I remember all the Democrats were being asked during the primaries, what do you think about reparations? And of course, most of them pandered. Oh, of course. Yeah, it's going to be the first thing we look into. They deserve it. And yeah, we know how that would go. But when Bernie was asked this question, the first thing he said was money isn't going to help. We have to change the system. Systemic change is what's needed because playing catch up is just not going to work. There is no way to catch up from 400 years of being behind in the race. You can't catch up to that. So the only thing we can do now is change the system and move forward. I thought that was amazing. So yeah, I voted for Bernie twice, and that is my stance on reparations. We should have them, but in the form of I can't say words, systemic change. That's what reparations should come from. It's his fault. It's his fault.
Yeah. And again, you know, we're just scratching the surface on all of these. There's 15 different studies, and they have links to even more information on each one of them. So please definitely go check those out. Again, either on the fan Facebook page or just in the description below. There are some other really good ones here, and we just won't have time to talk about them all, but I will, before we wrap up the whole show, I will at least point out this one because I was really happy to see this, that about 5% of Americans younger than 30 are transgender or non-binary. I think that is phenomenal that we are now living in a world where those individuals are feeling more comfortable to be able to answer these questions honestly, because it's not as if just the last 10 years trans people and non-binary people started existing. They've literally been around the entire time that humans have been around. And what has happened is there has been a cis heteronormative agenda that has truly been pushed for generations and generations. I mean, you want to freaking talk about indoctrination, my gosh. But we are now living in a time where in the United States, even though we still have quite a lot of progress that we need to make, we have made enough progress that more and more people are feeling comfortable to say this. And that's phenomenal because that's the type of world we should freaking have. I mean, again, maybe that's just a bold stance, you guys. Maybe I'm just out on a freaking limb here, but I don't know how you could be upset with more people being able to be who they are and living safely and comfortably, you know? So I don't know. I think that is
that was going to be my second article at first.
Yeah.
Too. I was like, oh my God, that's dope.
It's awesome. It's just absolutely awesome. And again, it's not like 30 years ago these people didn't exist. It's that 30 years ago they were thrown in jail or beaten in the streets for just being
thrown
who they are.
House.
Right, exactly. And so, that progress to me is absolutely amazing. And I hope that we continue to see more of this progress and more inclusivity for people of all genders or none. Just like we want more inclusivity for people of no religion and all religions. We want people to be able to practice their religion. We want you to be who you are. Just don't impose your crap on us and tell us we can't do our stuff. So with that, I guess we're getting close to the end. But before we go, I've got to remind you all out there, you wonderful viewers and listeners, that you should come hang out at the fan social media outlets. You can find most of the nonprofits host on the Atheist Community of Discord just by going to tiny.cc/ACD Discord and on Facebook at tiny.cc/FBNP. Those places always have great stuff going on. Even not on the wonderful Sundays. So why not go hang out? And if you would like to support the show, you can do so by becoming a patron at tiny.cc/PatreonNP. And if you find yourself already shopping at Amazon, well, you can support the Atheist Community of Austin by shopping at smile.amazon.com and selecting the Atheist Community of Austin as the beneficiary. So be sure to use that link to help out the ACA. We really appreciate it, folks. And of course, we value what you have to say. We want some feedback. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Shoot it in the comments below, maybe in the live chat if you're watching with us live. Email us maybe at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. Why not do all three? I mean, if you got the time and you really feel passionately about your comment, why not? You know, that's the way to ensure that we will get it. And also visit the Atheist Community of Austin's official website at atheist-community.org. That way you can have all the latest on what's been happening, and feel free to contact the ACA directly at tv@atheist-community.org. So before we go, we'll just run back around and kind of get everybody's quick final thoughts on everything. Let's start all the way on the other end. Richard, what are your final thoughts for us? Wrap it up.
I thought you were going to say on the far right then. Careful, young man. No, you know what? It's been a good fun show. This I've been excited. I'm not going to lie. This is no disrespect to Teo or Secular. I've been really excited about working with BB ever since I first saw him on Truth Wanted, and I'm so excited to have got to work with him. It's made my day. I've had a really good time. It's been a great show, and I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah. I'm not going to cry about that or anything off camera. Teo, what are your thoughts?
I will cry on camera. I do feel sad and offended. So Richard, talk to my hands, please. You know, in the last part, I really wanted to talk about 15 really quickly. Majority of nations around the world generally see social media as a good thing for democracy, but not the United States. Guys, you have one party, you have no democracy. So what are you talking about? USA, you scare me. Always, you scared the heck out of me. Please don't become a theocracy. Guys, please keep doing activism. Don't let the USA turn into that awful, awful thing that it is becoming. And I wish we didn't have topics to talk about in here. It's awful, it's scary, but I still love it and love you guys. You're amazing.
Blatant, what do you got for us?
I just want to say hashtag USA you scare me. That is absolutely a thing now.
Totally.
Yeah, for sure.
That is absolutely a thing now. Completely agree. But yeah, man, as usual, this was great. Some of the subject matter was kind of touchy, but yeah, hanging out with y'all is always great.
Yeah.
Y'all make the pill easier to swallow. Let's put it that way.
That's what we are open for here, and definitely for everybody out there that is watching or listening with us, we appreciate it, because you know that's what we do this for. We love to hang out with each other, but also it's for you guys. We want to get you some information, and we want to try to make that pill a little bit easier to swallow, because yeah, it can be rough sometimes. But seriously, for everybody out there, thanks for watching, thanks for listening in, and we will see you next time.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/ytth and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.